So I thought this morning I'd talk a little bit about, um, like a little bit about an experience I had with a really wonderful man who does kind of psychic stuff, psychic, so kind of, he reads energy fields. And so I was telling him about what I was doing with this and people pleasing. And he kind of defaulted to a bit of a teaching because what he was hearing and what I was saying was the importance of showing up as your authentic self, the importance of sovereignty and the capacity to be an individual in the context of our relationships, marriage, etc. And so, being a spiritual person, he quickly jumped into a teaching about about unity with all, and we are the ocean, and we're also the wave, of course, on the ocean, but we need to remind ourselves that we are also the ocean. And, I was listening, but I realized that what it brought up for me as it relates to people pleasing is I do have a bias because we are incarnated souls. This is kind of high level this morning, so indulge me that we necessarily have to start from our embodiedness, our uniqueness, sort of the kinkiness of the individual. I don't mean sexually, I just mean like that we are all so unique. We're each a snowflake. And the what sets up the people pleasing thing is that early in life we somehow got the message through some means, and it's never pleasant, that we can't be ourselves if we want to belong to this particular group called family. Like we have to contort ourselves in some ways. We can't have our feelings. We can't have our uniqueness. We have to conform to what this particular group of people need us to be. And of course, by now that I think that is unfortunate, to state it, and sort of to minimize it, but it's a kind of trauma that we learn to shape ourselves, curate a self for the sake of belonging, and then we forget about that and come into adulthood and into marriages and relationships and feel that same defaulting energy to conformity, to tuning into what others need from us and tuning into their desires and not speaking, etc., etc. So my bias is like on this spiritual psycho-emotional journey through life, we have to start there. And too often the rhetoric around unity being the ocean doesn't happen in the context of this heroic journey just to simply be you, to be yourself. There's a kind of bypass. There's a kind of spiritual jumping up to another level, so that whatever the work is of finding within ourselves the courage to be uncompromisingly ourselves in relationship is skipped over. And I think that's the danger of the teachings of unitive consciousness before people are actually have done the work of dropping into their unique, the unique image, the unique divine image that they were born into the world with. And so my bias is that has to be fully expressed. And then authentic community or communion in the context of a relationship, any kind of intimate relationship becomes possible. And then it's game on. Then it's like, okay, like when we are other to the other's otherness, and that otherness is seen and honored and saluted and protected and defended at all costs, then communion becomes possible, because it's the communion of two distinct individuals. And any communion which isn't that is a relinquishing of that communion for the sake of belonging. So, it's in his speaking, which I appreciate, and in this gentleman's teaching of me about what he felt I didn't know, it highlighted for me my bias towards being individuals is the key to being in authentic communion. And the extent to which most human beings, in my experience, have relinquished that. And those that haven't are seen as outliers and mavericks, and often portrayed as a little bit dangerous. And so Rilke, the German philosopher and poet, said to love another human being, that is the last test, that's the ultimate proof of what it means to be human. But what he meant by that is, once you've gained the capacity, in his own words again, to see the other whole against the sky, in other words, to see the other as other and let them be other, and then whatever charge out of that polarity of actual otherness, that we will never fully know this other human being, but we can bridge that differentness with love. That to me is communion. And that's the challenge. I mean, I think that's ultimately what we're doing. We say we're going to end people pleasing. Well, that's a code shorthand way of saying I'm going to find the courage before I die to be me, and to express that, because that is who came into this world in the image of the divine, in my own unique divine image. And to self-express is to find your purpose. To self-express and to be on purpose with another individual who also is committed to that is a miracle. It's the miracle of love, of true love. And so I think that that's the opportunity and the challenge of being in relationship with another in such a way that you experience deep communion. It's not a relinquishing of your individuality, but rather a dance between two individuals that flows, and of that dance, something unique is born. I think E. Cummings talked about, I am I am so new a thing when I am with you. So there is a sense in which a third presence is born when two individuals are in genuine communion, and this third presence of a we, is such a beautiful and rare bird that emerges, and two people are committed to being themselves, which sounds trite, but isn't. That I am so new a thing when I'm with you. So anyways, it's a little bit high level, but like, to set what we're doing here in a spiritual context, that's how I would kind of describe it. And we all know here, anybody who's done this, and if you're in this mentorship thing, it's like, we know that it takes courage, and it's not easy. to be ourselves, because we risk the original rejection, the historic messaging that reminds us that I can't be me and be with you. So I'll give up me to be with you. And then comes the resentment, then comes the anxiety, then comes the depression. So it requires courage, it requires support to live one's own life, especially within the context of an intimate relationship.